Okay, hello guys. So today we're going to paint some of the Rusty Dragon in. At least base coat the wood, mostly I hope. It depends on how long it takes. We're primarily going to be using the Vallejo Colors Flat Earth in Japanese uniform. These come right out of the wood leather paint kit. So if you need their numbers, they are 7.983 and 7.923. So without any waste of time, here's my palette. I generally, okay, so if you read the tutorial, it talks about painting different planks, different colors. Man, I think I need to kill a light real quick. Just one should be enough. That looks so much better on my camera. So maybe a little bit of water, but Vallejo paints are already thinned and primed. I am blending these two colors together to give me a color of the wood I want, and then we're going to see if I like it. Nice thin layer. Cover all the primer. Just brush it on there. You'll be like, oh my gosh, there's some lines there. That's okay. The lines are okay. Don't have to worry too much about going over. I'm using a really big brush because I want to cover a lot of space, a lot of stuff. I might switch my brushes up a little bit. This is just the first coat. The base, it pretty much looks the same, and it is a Rusty Dragon in, so I'm not going to worry too much about stuff. Am I going to paint the back? Right now I'm not going to paint the back. I'm just going to make sure that I get the sides covered. Try not to ruin the side by doing what I did. Long strokes are fine. You might want to go with the darker brown on the insides. This is the one I washed earlier. And when I say I boiled and effectively washed, you should always wash your models. I don't know if that's true with the WizKids pre-primed models. They're probably primed after they come out of the molds, so you're probably good to go. You don't need to wash them. I generally wash all my models before I paint them. Now I'm even going to hit the trim here on the top. Yeah, what the heck, why not? I'll hit the trim on the sides too. Maybe I'll dry brush it to gold or something. Maybe if it was a fancier place than a Rusty Dragon in. Maybe the Rusty Dragon's really fancy. I don't know. I've never been there. Just a little bit of paint in here. Or maybe these are just really special cabinets for the Rusty Dragon. You should be able to see my video either on Facebook or on YouTube about straightening my bent drawers, for those of you that watched the unboxing. But drawers, shelves. My shelves were pretty warped and I fixed them with boiling water. You could probably do the same thing with a hairdryer. They actually shaped fairly easily. Make sure that you get enough paint in here. And actually, I'm gonna paint the backs a little bit darker because of shadow. So I'm going to use more of the brown in the back, especially on the top parts. And the sides. Now don't worry about getting paint on the dragon up front here. If you want to paint it, really nice and make it look shiny and stuff, just go ahead and missed a spot there. Try and make sure on your base coat that you don't miss any spots. That's always an important factor. So And you'll see that there's like different tones and stuff that you can actually see my brush strokes on the camera. That doesn't matter that much in the back especially. Up to the front and stuff more, maybe a little bit. I just dip my brush in the water a little bit. Maybe too much. Take some of that water off my brush. There we go. And on the front, I'm going to go ahead and hit this with the paint. And that. A little bit darker at the bottom. Now, what you can do too is you can take like some sticky tack, put a board across the bottom here, and put this on here so you don't get paint all over your hands. Now I am going to hit these trim pieces like I said I would, but I'm going to paint those red, and we'll come back to that at a later point. They're like, oh no, but you got brown over there. Well, I'll go ahead and I'll put brown over the whole thing, just so they're kind of the same. But I am going to still come back and hit it with a red. And it's going to be really wet red. I want the red to be down into all those grooves, because I think I want to gild that a little bit and dry brush it with some gold or some hammered copper. See, that's why you... put it on something else. So I'm going to go ahead and set that piece aside. Now I'm going to do one of the bar pieces. I'm going to go ahead and start with the front. I'm going to be a little bit more careful this time so you guys can see in the end that there can be a difference. Maybe a little bit more brown down here. I'll just use my board here to straighten my brush out a little bit more. Now I'm using a large brush, because like I said, I wanted to put more paint on. If you want, you can go to something a little bit more delicate and make a little bit more finer detail stuff right off the bat. Like this, especially on the trim pieces. You can do this. The big brush just puts paint on faster, and I like speed because, well, I got a lot of stuff to paint. A little too dark there. That's okay. Set that aside. My palette tends to move all over the place. I'm actually thinking I'm going to go back to using a palette right on the board here. And then I'm going to do the sides because I can hold this. You don't have to worry too much about the sides. It's just there to give you paint where they might join with the other pieces. And, you know, move around. And so this piece butts up like this, right? Or actually it butts up like that. It's just so that people see a painted surface. And then I'm going to go do the back real quick. I did the front first so I can lay this down and hit these pieces. I generally try and paint with the wood grain when I'm painting. Unless I put too much on, then I'll go back across. Now this is going to get a dry brush after this, once it's dry, and probably a wash, and I'll probably call that quits for these models, because that's really all they need. And then I'll come here again, hit that a little bit. Make sure that my paint, see, I don't even know where the grain goes on that. I can't, the grain goes up and down. missed some stuff here. Now, if you want to get really picky, you can cut your model in. Now I'm on the top. I'm going to take a little bit of water, put it on the brush, mix this paint up a little bit more. More light hits the top of the bar, right? And I really don't care if it blends and runs and makes a mess. It's a bar top, so stuff's been spilled on here. There's going to be different layers of darkness. There's going to be different levels of wear. I'm not going to go through the headache of painting on all kinds of different wear and tear. So now I can come over here, hit another one of these bar pieces, boots of speed. Cut it in. Speed this up, cut it out, I don't know. There's also a technique called dipping that you can do on these models. Once you've base coated them, you can dip them in a varnish, or heck, an ink would work. I might actually dry brush these twice. A little bit of water. Just dip the tip of the brush in. That's all I did there. Just dip it in. Make sure that you cover everything. Now, if you want it darker, you just go like this, and let's see if I've got the control to do it. Where the heck is it? Great. If you want to add a little bit more dark, well, no, I can use that as a wash. But if you want it a little bit darker, you just add a slightly darker color, like a chocolate brown to the mix, maybe a drop. And then you can add even more layers of color to it, like I just added chocolate brown to the mix. So you got to smear that brown in there. Now take a look at that and that. When they dry, you're going to see a big difference, right? I haven't painted the front yet, so go ahead and do that. Now you can get super crazy detailed with this. If you want, and really take them to the next level. Or, heck, I've seen people use watercolors, which, by the way, is one of the colors that when I get to doing my finish on this, I might actually use the watercolor, because I like the way it looks. It looks really wet, but actually, no, I'm not going to waste the money on it. The watercolor that I have is really expensive, and I'm not going to go ahead and waste it on something as a base coat that I'm going to cover with like a copper or a gold. I like the idea of hammered copper, I really do, or bronze. But we'll see. I'll test it first on one, and then pick it out. Now you can see that this piece of wood is a little bit darker. Oops, I didn't want to do that. I wanted my big brush back. A little bit of water. Paint the sides up. just to hide stuff. Alright. Grab one of these guys. Hit it. See that corner there? That's a big gap of wet paint. So what you're going to do is just drag that off. Now anytime that there's too much paint or you're concerned about your brush marks, all you have to do is get a paper towel and dry it off. Again, so using the big brush early on for your base coat definitely allows you to put more paint on. It's a little bit sloppier if you want to be careful about something and you want something to be a certain color. Every layer of paint you put on will affect the shading and the texture, the darkness I should say, the depth, the tone of your model. As you'll find out here in the future, I'm going to leave those like that. When we come back, I'll mark here. I'll just paint the inside of the bottom here, so we know that that one is the sloppy one. I'm going to go ahead and take some of this dark brown, put it in here best I can. Trying to paint while watching the camera is interesting. And I'm just dragging these out. Now I'll start to mix a little bit. Hit the front. Hit the top of the shelf. Did I do the top of the shelves on that one? Oh, I didn't. I missed it. So do that real quick. Without that light on, it's a little hard for me to see what I'm doing. Sorry about being off camera there. Paint these up. But when I look at the TV, it's a lot easier to see what I've done. So I'm trying to teach myself while teaching you, or sharing with you, I should say. I'm the teacher when it comes to painting. How to paint by looking at the TV screen. Paint the bottom. You don't have to paint the bottom if you don't want to, but some of the people I game with would look at that and be like, you cheated. And you know, there is no right or wrong to buying these and painting them or not painting them. It's your prerogative. So if you want to paint them, paint them. If not, don't. Or if you don't even want to buy them, don't buy them. But they paint real easy. The fact that they're already primed is, I think, pretty phenomenal. My paint's a little too thin right there, so I'm going to get a little bit more and thicken it up. Put it on this model. Finish painting this guy out. Now, I'm going to go ahead and move on after this to, I'm going to dry brush the piece that I've already done, or the pieces I've already done. Let everything else dry because I'm running out of time. I only wanted to do this for about a half hour. And I would like to show you guys a little bit more from start to finish. So we're going to take these two pieces. Actually, I'm going to base coat the table. I want the table to be a little bit darker. So base coating the table, the grain goes this way. Maybe a little bit of water in there, so that it gets down into all the nooks and crannies and spreads really well. Flip it over. Now, if you want some like darker streaks, see how I've got those darker streaks in there? That's actually going to give it a lot more color. I'm going to take this brown here and I'm just going to go like this, smear it a little bit, because this is actually like one piece of wood. So I like this table. I actually think it's probably my favorite piece of the set for some reason. It's just, I don't know. Got paint all over my hands, but hey, that's normal. Got too much water again. So we do this. Alright, I'm going to set that aside and let that dry. So now I'm going to get rid of this brush. I don't need this brush anymore. And I'm going to go to dry brushing. I'm going to start dry brushing just like this. I'm going to take this. This is another color from the kit that I mentioned earlier. This is dark sand. And I'm just going to put a drop in my palette here. Maybe. And the way you dry brush is you take a brush, preferably a beat up brush. Do I have a beat up brush? I got this brush that's beat up. It's pretty beat up. And then you take your colors and you mix them together. And your dry brush color should always be lighter than what you've brushed with. So I'm taking these three colors here and I'm kind of making a mix. Now, if I come back and I dry brush again, I'll just take this color. And then if I dry brush again, I'll take this color and add white to it. So, and then you just make sure it's good and dry, right? And you go like this. Well, okay, on the edge, I'm going to go like this. But on the wood grain, I'm going to go across it. The goal is you're going to lighten the shading of what you just painted by taking some of that pigment and rubbing it across the bar, hitting the high spots. Oops, that was too much. Oh well. Hitting the high spots and bringing it to life a little bit. This brush might be a little too beat. My paint's still a little wet too. Especially like on the door here. I really kind of want to give it a little bit more life. Especially down towards the bottom. Normally the bottom is where the shadows are going to hit, but this ledge is going to put more of a shadow on the model, and the handle's going to be lighter from wear and tear, right? So you just keep going over edges where you think the light's going to hit until you're happy. Probably not so much yet. It's going to be filled with dirt. But the bottom here, maybe a little bit. The first one we painted, come back. You can hit that with some dry brushing. Dry brush the molding. The molding's got those high spots in it. That's going to make it nice to dry brush for you. Depending on how much wear and tear is on the bar, there might be a good bit of dry brushing here. The edges from the top down, where they might have been bashed and battered. Maybe some spots here for more wear and tear. Definitely again on the molding. And I'm pushing pretty hard. To make this happen. And that's pretty much how you dry brush. Maybe a little bit more up top. I mean, this is going to be covered with dust, but it'll help give you the idea of how to hit high spots. You know, scratches in the wood, wear and tear, types of things. Maybe here a little bit more. I like to dry brush large areas with a flat brush, but you have to. The time you have to be most careful with it is when you first get the brush dipped in the paint. You can even use dry paint on this if you want, or drier paint, I should say. The best thing to do is go against the grain, hit those high spots. And then I'm coming down here, I'm going to hit the cabinet door again, a little bit more towards the bottom. And then, well, maybe over here. I'm going to take my best piece, which I think is probably this one. No, I'm going with this one. And I'm only going to show you on the top. You take another color, the chocolate brown, and you mix it half and half, which I don't really have a good mixing container. So I'm going to go like this. One drop. And then I'm going to take the smoke. This is my first wash in case I do a second wash. I'm going to take a drop of the smoke. And this smoke is like an ink, so it's going to be pretty wet. Like that. Then, where's my water bottle? You got to be really careful with the water, with this water bottle. I'm going to take a drop of water. It's supposed to be 50-50, but I want it to be a little bit thicker. I'm going to take my brush that I've been using, mix those together, and that's my first wash. Okay. And the way you check a wash is, let's see, what is this? That's, you go like this. I do need a little more water in my wash. The way you check it is, if it's transparent, your wash is good enough. So my wash is good. Now, okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and wash the top of this model. Now see how that fills the cracks. I'm going to wash this part too. If you think it's a little too thick, go ahead and add water. and I'm going to wash the back. And you're like, oh no, it's gathering there. Well, that's actually what you want the wash to do. You want it to gather. You want it to darken the paint. You want it to run into the gaps. And then you have to let it dry. You really can't do anything else to this model until you let it dry. So again, you just take your little bit of paint, wash stuff, and go like this. And if you over dry brushed, this will help darken that up a little bit. It also helps make it pop a little more. The other thing you can do with your wash is you can go like this and hit the corners a little bit where there's going to be more darkness on this piece here. Come back through here, hit these spots, hit that. Now if you want, you can hit the sides right away. I mean, this model has been beat up a little bit, and that's okay. It is a rusty Dragon, or, you know, when I think rusty Dragon, I don't think new. I think, now what you can't do is what I just did, because if you do that, you're going to take all your paint off. So you do have to let it dry. Be careful with it. Paint's all over my finger now. And that is basically the first phase. Now, I brought red, and the reason why I brought red, this is actually Vallejo's Scar Red. And like I said, I'm going to base coat, maybe. Where's my little thingy-ma-bob? Maybe I'm not going to base coat. I'm about out of battery. Got red all over my hands now. So what I'm going to do is really quick make this little wash, because I'm about out of battery and I'm going to have to come back and finish this on another day. And what I want to do is hold this down. I'm going to switch my brush to the smaller, finer brush if I can find where I put it. It's over here. And the reason why I'm doing this is I want the red to be in the background of these behind it. Like it's, you know, not so much like it's a wall. Just kind of like it's glowing. And what I plan on doing, and I hope I am good enough to do this, is come back and hit it with a gold or a like a brassy, bronzy color, because the red's really going to help those colors pop. And I put the paint on a little too thick there, so I just added some water. The brush soaked some of that up. Actually soaked quite a bit of it up. And as you can see, the spots are still cut. Man, what is on my brush? Something is on my brush. And that, like I said, it's really going to help things pop. And I will come back, hopefully later this afternoon, and finish one of these up. Maybe figure out how and what I'm going to do to the dragon. Probably not crazy colors. Clean up some of this red. But anyway, that is the base coat. and first wash of the Rusty Dragon Inn's tavern set, or bar set, I should say. You can go ahead and do pretty much all kinds of things to this kit. You can put some red in the brown and just do several layers on the barrel. But I hope to come back and finish later. I'm out of battery power, so have a good one, guys. Talk to you later. So I let them dry, and now we're going to go ahead and put on a little finishing touches. This is the dry brush experiment I was telling you about. I wet it all down with the red, and then I just came over it with, I used the Game Color 72057, which I think is number 57, but my bronze is about 10 years old, so that number might have changed. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to do that with this one right here. Actually, we might do it with them all if they're all done. Oops. Helps if you shake up your paint. That is actually more than enough paint. You just, to dry brush, you just take your paint, get some pigment on the brush, and ever so lightly. This brush is actually kind of big for this, but that's life. That's what I got to work with. I suppose if you wanted, you could really jazz it up a little bit more and hit some of the molding with it. Now you might notice that I hit a couple of the high spots on the wood with the red. I'm going to come back over it and wash it anyway. You know, and it being the Rusty Dragon Inn, it'll add some effect to things. I did a little bit of experimenting on this one. I've got lighter brown on the bottom. Don't really like it. I'm probably going to come back and darken that up. So it's really dry, so you don't get it in everything, and you just, it's actually best if you use a brush that is beat, that you don't care about. I buy a lot of junk brushes. I like the dry brushing techniques a lot. I've been known to dry brush models up completely. Has to be the right model. And a little bit of pigment goes a long, long way when dry brushing. As you can see, I actually really like that one. I like that more than the others. And one more. Is that it? I feel like, oh no. There's two more pieces. Oh, well, I'm not going to do that one right now. And with a pattern like this, the good thing is you can go both ways. You can use pretty dry paint when you dry brush, because basically all you're doing is rubbing the pigment on it. The red really helps make this bronze pop, because there's reddish undertones in the bronze. Well, there you go. That's pretty much how those are going to be finished. What's next? So the next thing to do is I'm going to take a big brush, fat brush like this, and I'm going to take, oh, nope, I'm not going to take a base. Thought that was an empty base. I'm not going to use that. Well, I can use one of these empty bases. And then I'm going to take the smoke, put some smoke in my base, dip the brush in some water, and turn this into a wash. Now let's see here. So this table is completely washed. This top is also completely washed, so I'm not going to give them a wash again. This top is washed and dry brushed with the Japanese uniform. I don't like the look. I like the darker wood. So I'm probably not going to dry brush these. Maybe I'll hit the edges with flat earth because that's a shade lighter. I'm going to wait a couple of days before I make up my mind on that because, well, because things dry. I have a lot of humidity in my house. It takes a little bit longer to dry. So I'm going to do a wash. Oh man, I just got smoke on my arm. I'm going to do a wash. Now, okay, so my wash is a little thick. You can fix that a lot of different ways. You can just dip your brush in some water and brush it off more. Now it looks like it's a wet bar, which is okay. It's going to dry. If you leave those heavy spots there, it's going to look like it's got something spilled on it, or thicker varnish, different type of wood texture, a stain in the wood maybe from before they painted it up or varnished it. Go ahead and dry brush underneath a little bit, hit the corners a little bit more darkness in there, make them look a little bit like a shadow. Now, if you want, see that, oh, that tasted awful. See that line there? If you want, you can just wet your brush a little bit and drag that out. And that'll help blend it a little bit more. It won't be as pronounced. And then brush it down with the strokes that you made with the brush earlier, and it'll be a little bit darker at the bottom. And don't paint the side and then touch it because you'll get smoke all over your hand. And I'm pretty happy with that. I want to brush this out here a little bit more. And I'm going to move it out of the way. Oops, there's some smoke there I need to get rid of. I'm going to smoke the top of this with my mix. I'm a little heavy-handed with my wash on woods. I like it that way. You don't have to be. The good thing about a wash is you can apply it light, and if you don't like it, then you can come over and apply it heavier, thicker, however you want it. Then I'm going to hit the tops of the cabinets. That was way too much. A little too dark. Although the top of the cabinet is going to be, you know, pretty much unseen by public and stuff, right? So you could actually just put a layer of dust on it for effect if you wanted. And if you really want, you can hit the pieces of trim while you're doing this. I wasn't going to do that on this particular piece because I wanted to paint the dragon, but I did. Now, try not to get your wash on the red and the gold. I'm going to come back and I'm actually going to hit that with a red ink, I think. Not sure. Depends on what it looks like when it dries. And I've already hit this one once, but I'm going to hit it again. Now there's a lot there, so I'm going to grab one of these handy dandy things of foam and just kind of pat it a little bit and hit it again and brush it all out because there was too much. Paper towels work great. Now I'm going to take one of these brushes that is made by Games and Gear. I'm not entirely sure where I picked these up. Somebody gave them to me. I've never bought these, but so far I've been using it for this model a little bit here and there, and I really like it. And I'm going to go ahead and paint the dragon with peacock green, which is a color that I actually got from these are from Reaper. I don't normally use the Reaper paints, but I picked that up because I liked the shade. I usually use Vallejos, and that's because, well, 20 years ago when I owned my game store, that was what I originally bought into on the recommendation of my sales rep. And I have been a fan ever since. That doesn't mean that Reaper paints aren't good paints. They are. I have just been prone to sticking with what I've been using. And, you know, it's not a real dragon, so get as detailed as you want or as little as you want. You know, this could be a painted piece on the dresser or cabinet, or the bar. I guess you could say it's the bar. One thing that painting will do is it will reveal to you the spots of wood that you may have missed or may not have realized have missed, because as you add color, there's going to be different shading, different light hitting it. Now, since you've already painted the wood, or if you've already painted the wood like I have, try not to get it on the woodwork. And as you can see, I'm totally botching my paint job on top. So I'm going to stop trying to grab the top while I paint. You can see right there, that's actually wood. I thought maybe it was part of the dragon, but it's not. And the dragon actually goes way back in there. You can't really tell too much, so I'm not going to bother trying to paint that with a big brush. I'm just going to hit some of these spots that are visible from the front. Maybe a little bit of water here. Lighten some of these spots. Let the thicker, darker paint run down into the recesses. And keep the darker paint on the more physical part of the body, lighter underbelly. Brush that out a little bit. And I will come back and I will hit the underbelly with some other paint, and then I will go ahead and paint this out right now. And because I botched it, I'm going to go ahead and hit this right now. Probably don't have to. It's the top, gets moved around, gets bashed, and bam, that's pretty much the Rusty Dragon in. Pretty much completed. Or I should say the bar piece is pretty much completed. I did come back and hit the other stools. I'm going to probably give all of these a wash. I don't think I'm going to use the smoke on these. I'm going to probably give them a quick light brush with a lesser color. Dry brush. Just to make them pop a little bit more. And then I'm going to use a black ink. Thanks for watching, guys. Yay.